Good afternoon. I'd like to call this October 2018 meeting of the Cambria Community Services District Board of Directors to order. And if you would all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum today. All 5 directors are here. And do we have a report from closed session, Mr. Carmel?
Nothing formal to report, but the board discussed recruiting a general manager and the interim and acting general manager positions and compensation associated with those positions.
Thank you very much. Agenda review, are there any additions or changes, deletions? Okay. Then I'd like to move on to the next item, which is acknowledgements. Mrs. Madrid.
Yes, it was suggested that we bring our new employees here to introduce them. So I'll take the pleasure of introducing each one of them. And so we'll start with admin. We have Nancy Gravender. Can you guys come up to the front? Well, to the little podium.
I would love to. Always ready to do something for the district.
And she has filled the position of the finance specialist, which handles payroll, benefits, and assists the finance manager in higher level finance work. Then we have Michael Benedetti, and he has replaced the billing clerk, and so he handles the front desk, billing, and vets hall scheduling. Then we have wastewater treatment plant operator Jason Vormbaum, and he's a wastewater grade 3 now, I believe. And so then we also have Tony Artho, who is also a grade 3 wastewater operator. And then we have Jim Friedel, who I think is in wastewater also. And I think you're a grade 2. Yes, so you're a grade 2. And then we have Jim Green, who is our new SWF CPO. He's a treatment 3. And I think you're studying for your 4.
Soon to be 4, yeah. The exam
Yes.
is next Saturday.
Okay, and I think that's all our staff, right? I don't see anybody else. So, okay. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much. Nice to put a face with the names. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is public safety. Let's start with the Sheriff's Department report, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Got it. Good afternoon. Michael Manueli, Sheriff's Coast Station Commander. Today, I bring to you the stats for September, and I realize you may have already heard these stats, as I have been running the stats monthly for statistical purposes so that we can compare year to year. So these may be redundant, and you may have already heard them. But for the month of September, we had 59 calls for service, 9 disturbance calls, 3 burglaries, 2 which turned out to be civil, and 1 was an extra patrol request. We had 6 reported thefts, 8 mail thefts, 2 vandalisms, 5 different types of scam calls, 11 suspicious circumstances, for a total of 25 reports. There were all told 290 calls for service, resulting in 25 different reports. I want to remind you, Halloween is coming up next week, and that we want to practice all kinds of different safety. First of all is making your house safe. A lot of people out there on the roads. Use appropriate lighting if you are going to be allowing trick-or-treaters to your house. Turn lights on so that it's very clear that you are there and that people come and go from the house safely and don't have any trips and falls. In the evening, when you do close down, turn your lights off and make sure everything's secured. Make sure your vehicles are secured. Make sure your doors are secured, garages closed. Don't leave anything out there to tempt our Halloween guests. And when you're out there driving around, drive slowly, use caution. The kids often don't have bright clothes, they don't have flashlights with them, and they're hard to see. So slow down if you are out and about driving around. And that's my report for this meeting.
Does anyone have any questions? We appreciate you coming and letting us know what's happening in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
CCSG Fire Chief's report. I believe we have Captain Torlano here to give the report for the fire department. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here on behalf of Chief Hollingsworth, Emily Torlano, Fire Captain. Chief's in a class this afternoon, so he asked me to step in for him. So for the month of September, we have 88 emergency responses, local versus non-local. There was 81.2% of local versus 18.8% of non-local. Fire hydrant maintenance, we are at 217 maintained so far to date. We had the Pier to Point in September. Also, I don't know if any of you participated in that. A pretty good outcome for that. We had 50 participants this year. Also, we hosted the surf rescue class for many of our department members. There were 11 students total, and that was the rescue boat operator and rescue swimmer. And there were some out of our department members as well in that class. There's been prescribed burning in the Lemur area. You all have seen the piles out there. We've completed about 1/4 of the total piles. We're working on completing that project. As soon as we get the staffing and the right weather and environmental conditions, we'll be moving forward with that in the future. So we usually don't know until the date of. Let's see, hazard mitigation grant program that Chief has been working on. He's filed 2 notices of interest for fuel reduction projects in town. And then also for Fire Prevention Week, that was October 7th through 13th. We were very active within the school presentations. We had school assemblies. We had station tours. We went and read at the library at the elementary school to the little kids. And then the burn relay came through town as well, raising money for the Alyssa Ann Rouge Burn Foundation. And then also Season of Hope 2018 has kicked off, and that's countywide participation with the allied agencies and KSBY. And there's a donation center at our fire station on Burton Drive, and that has the Toys for Tots barrel as well as food goods, non-expired food goods. I'd like to mention, please don't bring expired foods because we'll throw them away. And that's it, unless you have any questions.
Vice President Berger.
No, I just wanted to have you carry forward to the chief the fact that he had responded to a citizen's inquiry about burning piles, and he did an excellent job, and I just wanted you to pass that on.
I absolutely will.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Director Wharton.
Yes. Are you able to speak to the incident that I called in last night regarding the burn, the fire that was off of below Ramsey Drive, I believe?
Oh, sure.
Highway 1, yeah, because I was driving by, heading south towards Burton. My wife was in a couple cars behind me, and she said, "Did you see that fire?" And I said, "Yeah, I was," and I headed towards the fire station. But I believe you guys were reported to the 46 and 1 accident.
We were just coming back from a vehicle accident north. We got dispatched to the possible debris fire is what it came in as, and we got the wrong information from dispatch. They told us north of Burton,
Okay.
so we went the wrong direction. Couldn't find anything, headed south, and then we found SO at scene, and we could see some flickering lights over toward Ramsey. Went around to that side, and it ended up just being transient with flashlights. We couldn't find any fire or smoke in the area, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chief,
we didn't know it was you that called it in.
Yeah, it was me. And I spoke
Okay.
I spoke with Chief. He called me after and gave me an update. But I mean, it did look impressive from where
Really?
being in the pitch black. But yeah, it just seemed.
Right. Yeah, no, we
To me, it seemed like
appreciate
a fire,
everyone
yeah.
having due diligence and calling
Yeah.
anything they think might be fire. We need to get on it quickly. So appreciate that. Thank
Thanks
you.
for the follow up.
Sure. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your report. All right, now we're on to public comment. This is the time we set aside at every meeting for members of the public to speak to the board on any item within the district's jurisdiction, and each speaker will have 3 minutes. We're going to start off with Mike Lyons, followed by Hank, and I'll let you pronounce your last name.
Go ahead, Hank.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. We'll get you.
Thank you very much, Mike
Thank
Lyons,
you.
Cambria. I've been coming before this podium, this board, for about 15 years, and I would estimate maybe having spoken in public like this about 50 times. I've always registered to speak, never spoken out of turn, always respected the time limits, and I've always tried to address my comments to the board, with the exception of the last meeting, when I loudly interjected the comments of another speaker. I consider these meetings to be local governmental meetings as opposed to political meetings for political commentary or especially political campaigning. Nevertheless, I'm aware of the loose boundaries allowed by the Brown Act, and to a great extent, public comment is actually free speech. Still, I think it would be appropriate if the board would somehow come up with some guidelines for the audience, for the speakers in the future, about subjects that should be spoken about at public comment. I'm acutely aware of the pressures and responsibilities you board members have and operate under. And since you're all volunteers, for which I'm doubly grateful, I appreciate your willingness to serve under sometimes contentious circumstances. Inasmuch as my comments last meeting may have added to the stress levels of your service here, I apologize profusely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Hank, and I'm sorry, please, you'll have to pronounce your last name for me so that I can get it right.
It's Krysiak. That's the way computers pronounce it, so that's what I've elected. I apologize for my voice. A week or so, I have some surgery to help that out.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm from the suburb of Cambria called San Simeon. And so this is a little bit unusual, but what happened here a couple of weeks ago in San Diego was a Coastal Commission met, and at that Coastal Commission meeting, I think our district caught the Coastal Commission off guard, literally blindsiding it with what they did, as well as a bit baffling to some of us. But what came out of it, there's some good, some bad, and some ugly. The good thing is that for the first time, the district, San Simeon, agreed that they need to move or close their wastewater treatment plant. That was the first time they've admitted that in public at the Coastal Commission meeting. And two is that they want to pursue a regional solution that includes Cambria and state parks to process wastewater. So that was something I've been personally promoting for 2 years against considerable pushback. And it is a little bit of an unusual idea, but I have heard that that's been passed before here. Supervisor Gibson spoke and offered his services to facilitate such a study and such a plan between Cambria State Parks and San Simeon. At the North Coast Advisory Council meeting, he was a little bit Bruce Gibson, in that he kind of said that sometimes the communities have to come to him to ask him for help, but he's there to provide full support. And obviously he's done it with Los Osos for their situation. And I think he has the respect of the Coastal Commission. I wanted to make some key points. Our water, 70 to 80% of our water usage is commercial. And our rates, I know I hear a lot of whinging here from Cambrians about their rates. Our sewage rates for commercial, which represents most of our business, is 2 to 4 times higher than your new rates. 2 to 4 times higher. Hard to believe until you put the numbers on a piece of paper. We represent about 5% to 6% of your total volume or capacity in your wastewater treatment plant, and your wastewater staff, if they're still back there, could work those numbers. So we're not a huge volume, and that includes state parks. So it's not like we're going to double your volume or anything like that, 5 or 6%. And what is the potential gains for Cambria in such a thing? Well, one thing that was really interesting in the proposal that was supposedly going to be agreed upon 2 weeks ago was allowing the outfall line to be used. That the Coastal Commission was no longer going to require the removal of the outfall line. There's some strong opinions about that, and I confirmed that with the Coastal Commission, that might be a possibility for your brine solution. So there may be something in it for you. There's some options here, shorter term and longer term. Shorter term, I'm going to be done, would be to tap into the existing line at the lift station by the campground.
President
And
Rice,
two would be
I would hope that we
longer.
can give him more time.
Could I get 10 seconds or 15
A
seconds?
little more than that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, President. So short-term could tap into the existing line and lift station by the campground, which would allow something to happen within a couple of years because it'd only be about 1.5 miles of pipeline. Two, or go longer term for the new shared plant. The Coastal Commission is not going to sit on its laurels. We're in enforcement. They're going to come down quickly, demanding some action. So something will start happening here soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for keeping it brief there. I appreciate that. And next up, we have Tina Dickinson as my last request to speak for public comment. If you'd like to make public comment, please get a speaker slip in.
Before my time begins, may I, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, before my time begins, Mr. Lyons alluded to what happened last month when he was out of order, calling me out of order. But I would just say that you, President Rice, said that we don't have a policy for that. Those were your words. We don't have a policy set in place for that. I would say we need to just look at the Constitution and our First Amendment rights before we start making board policy on First Amendment rights. I do not believe I was out of order.
I agree.
All right, thank you.
Doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a policy that helps people understand the process that we use here.
Well,
that would have to be,
sure.
of course, in line with constitutional rights.
Great. And very quickly, to speak to Mr. Krusiek's comments, I did watch that portion of the Coastal Commission meeting. I've been following that for years. And what Mr. Krusiek did not mention, which is the big elephant in the room, and the big elephant is money. Cambria to be associated with San Simeon and state parks. And by the way, state parks hadn't even heard about this before the Coastal Commission meeting. They hadn't even been taught, neither had President Rice. So all of this went on behind the scenes and was exposed at the Coastal Commission meeting without the two of the three agencies even being notified. So that was very interesting, but the big elephant in the room is the money. Now, in my comments for today, 1,268 protests for the Prop 218 were submitted. While certainly not enough for a successful protest, they were a substantial amount. And I think they were quite telling of how a good portion of the community feels about their current rates and especially how they're being spent or not being spent. I think it also garnered a lack of mistrust with management and board oversight. Cambrians, I really think we can do better than this. I think we've had this plant sitting there built for 4 years now. 2014 October, here we are 2018, and we still do not have a CDP, a regular CDP. We have an emergency permit for the EWS, nothing else. That is not the fault of the community. That is not the fault of where all the money that's gone, which I think has doubled. The $9 million has doubled. And so, that's where it's at. Nothing has moved really far enough forward for it to be used as it was intended. So in light of that, I would say, Cambrians, if you haven't voted yet, as I said last time, I would suggest that you vote for two folks in this community I've gotten to know well, Don Howell and Dennis Perry. I do not have a flyer for Dennis today, but I would say we need a new mindset on the board so we can get out of this quagmire. We really, really need to get going on a different direction. So if you haven't voted, consider Don Howell and Dennis Perry for this upcoming election for CCSD directors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. Leslie Richard.
Good day. In regards to the financial resources of the district, I would like to bring to your attention a statement made at the October 10th Candidates Forum by Director Wharton and his intentions of future distributions of these limited resources. The question was asked of the 5 candidates, do you feel that the CCSD is morally obligated to recognize the water wait lists and the lot owners? Director Wharton stated that it was a moral obligation of the district to recognize, open, and remedy the water wait list, as well as the additional 1,000 lot owners not on the water wait list. He even expanded his answer to include his calculations of the total property taxes paid by these poor individuals, $6 million into county coffers over 20 years with no return on their original investments, and he felt they should be compensated. The question, should the CCSD be morally obligated, is a loaded question designed specifically to garner an emotional response and not necessarily an objective one. As a faith-based individual, the term moral obligation represents to me personally the tenets of God's will or God's laws. During the 20-plus years of debate over water issues, never in my recollection has anyone dictated to the community that it was as a direct result of CCSD's obligation to enforce, quote, God's will or, quote, God's laws, my quote, that we open the water wait list and start building $1 million spec houses immediately, which is exactly what Director Wharton advocated he would do. So I recommend we add a third category for reparations, not just 1, those poor lot owners, or 2, the 665 water wait list, but 3, roughly 115 individuals like myself who speculated during the moratorium and built our houses, but were forced due to the volatile nature of the artificial real estate market created by the CCSD moratorium to pay 7 times the current going rate of an active water service, $35,000, to the tune of $250,000, which means, according to Director Wharton's moral obligation reparations program, the CCSD should refund to people like me the difference of $215,000. This is only fair, right? In conclusion, Director Wharton's plans to redirect our limited financial resources to a small, closed set of recipients against the needs of the entire existing Cambria community is just wrong, morally or otherwise. Thank you.
Christine Heinrich, this you said that you wanted to speak on the general manager hiring. That is an item on the closed session.
That's a closed session, so I can't speak on that.
But yes, we take public comment on closed session.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
but not now, like right before when we do that part.
It goes to some other issues. May I go ahead?
Absolutely. But you can't have the second 3 minutes before the closed session.
Unless I say something different. I can always come up with more. Anyway, appointing an interim general manager is an important step in moving Cambria forward. Even more important will be selecting a new general manager. General managers seem to circulate among small districts. A failure in one leads to a new appointment in another community. Tammy Ruddock went on to another position after she was booted out of Cambria. Jerry Gruber was hired as a utility manager here after a checkered employment history and then automatically made a general manager. Let's get off that hiring merry-go-round. Cambria needs a competent water and sewer manager who can work within financial constraints. This person needs to appreciate the differences within the community. He or she needs to communicate well with all board members. With 1 or more new members coming onto the board of directors, this could be a good time to do something that you, Madam President, have proposed in the past, a mission statement for the board. Having a mission statement can help the board and the community understand our priorities going forward. If we don't know where we are going, how will we know when we get there? Cambria could commit to being a low or zero carbon community, sustainable, resilient, and rewarding. We could inspire Cambria and Cambria's residents to engage with low carbon use and empower them to move toward low carbon living. Our mission could be to tackle CO2 emissions in a tangible way by creating and initiating greenhouse gas reduction strategies for the district and helping businesses and individuals do the same. That includes our natural resources, home energy, transport, food, other consumption, and waste. That may sound like a big step, But it's the elephant in the room as we talk about relocating the wastewater treatment plant due to sea level rise, the need for water as drought gets worse. Let's embrace it. Such a mission statement could help guide Cambria in hiring the next general manager. The public should be involved in selecting that person. Open meetings are important. Including citizen members on the search committee will assure adequate airing of all points of view. Cambria needs enthusiastic, knowledgeable administration as the community resolves legacy problems and steps into the future. Cambria can be known for something other than scarecrows. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tony Church is my last request to speak on public comment.
Good afternoon, directors. This is a little different. Two things which I'm concerned about, which the authorities didn't seem to address today. One is I've noticed an increase in transients in the area, and I do not see that the sheriff is making his usual rounds. I don't think they're going and looking as much as they were, and I think that is of great concern. The other thing is I'm disappointed with the report from the fire department, to the extent that they said 217 fire hydrants have been done. That is shameful because, as far as I can see from the reports, very few have been done in the last few months. So I'm just bringing it to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next item of business is the consent agenda. I do want to address just really quickly the issue that had been brought up about San Simeon and the hearing with Coastal. I did receive a call from Bruce Gibson and from Charlie Grace, who is the manager in San Simeon. And at this point, until we know that it's a technically permittable thing, that we could get it permitted through the regional board and such, any discussions at the board levels about policies going forward seem like they would be moot. So hopefully we will be able to, through staff, get that information about the technical feasibility. And then we can look at other things like actual feasibility with money and all those other. But I just wanted to let folks know that I did watch the hearing and then last week got those two calls. So. And of course, it didn't commit to the district to anything other than let's find out what's possible, and then we'll talk. Vice President Berenger.
Yes, to expand on that just a little bit, about 4 months ago, I believe it was brought up as a staff member had made that suggestion, and about co-locating the plants. The staff then struck that from the agenda, as I recall, and it was never actually brought to the board. This time, I did get a call from Mr. Gibson saying that in public he did mention his support of it, but that's all. I don't think that there's any discussion at our level, and at this time, and we need to move forward in that direction.
Yeah, it's conceptual at this point until we get further. I was a bit surprised when it came up too at the hearing. So if you missed it, it was the Friday of the most recent Coastal Commission meeting. It's worth a watch. All right, consent agenda. Did anybody have any items they would like to pull?
No, this is just addressing what you were just saying. If you just wanted to watch that part with regard to San Simeon and Mr. Grace and Mr. Gibson getting up and speaking in front of the Coastal Commission, it goes on for about an hour and it starts at about an hour and 15 minutes in, if you just wanted to go right to that point. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I do have a question on I don't want to hold up the consent agenda, but I do know that in the consent agenda we have a special meeting on Wednesday, September 12th, and I noticed that Director Rice was absent, and I remember opening that meeting, and I was asked by a constituent, and since then asked why you may not have been there. Do you recall on September 12th why? And you don't have to, I don't want to put it down, but,
No, I was at a Coastal Commission hearing in Santa Cruz.
and then did it have any CCSD?
I was basically, there was an item for Cambria on the agenda in that afternoon, and I spoke to it as an individual member of Cambria, but I also had some conversations with the executive director and a couple of the Santa Cruz office staff people.
Okay. And so then on the expenditure report in August, where you had made charges to going to the Scotts Valley, that wasn't that?
That was that meeting.
That was that meeting?
Yeah, that was in Scotts Valley.
Thank you.
Sure. I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda if there are no other comments. Oh, yes, I do have a couple. Thank you. Couple of public comments. Dawn Howell, followed by Tina Dickinson. Tina, you didn't put your name on your slip again. Yeah.
I know I've been sick, but...
Dawn Howell.
Want me to write it in there?
No, I can add it in. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is it okay? I had a few questions about the expense report. I just want to put them out. I don't know that I need to be answered right now, but if one is so moved, I wouldn't mind hearing some answers. Regarding on page 6 of the packet, the charges for Carmel law firm, total of almost $34,000. If I subtract out the retainer for October, we still come up with a significant amount of money. So we have the September retainer and an additional $11,783 additional services. So I'm just kind of wondering because I presume when there is a retainer that the law office works off the retainer and then bills for what the retainer doesn't cover. I may be wrong about that. But what I would like to know at some point is how many hours does this actually represent? It sounds like an awful lot of hours to me, especially if the firm is giving the CCSD a cut rate. So just kind of wondering how many hours are involved. And apropos of that same issue, there's almost $12,000 for an additional, for another law firm, Liebert, Cassidy and Whitmore on page 9 for $11,745.50. So now I see two issues of two law firms being paid, and again, kind of just wondering how many hours and what we can be told about that, if anything. Secondly, on page 6, third line from the bottom, there's a $3,995.95 refund to a customer. That's an awfully large refund, and it seems that just raised a question in my mind. I've not seen refunds like that before. Just wondering what that's all about. And then on pages 7 and 8, credit card bills running up to nearly $6,000. Again, this seems excessive to me. Excessive use of a credit card where perhaps low-value purchase orders or some other method might be better used to give a little better tracking of expenses. And then lastly, there is on page 10, I think I can't read my writing here, Rutan and Tucker, I believe, LLP for SWF Professional Services. A significant amount of money in 1 month, $10,732.77. I think it's fair to ask what that is for. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Does staff want to respond to any of that?
Tina is next.
Well, I can generally speak to the legal bills and Carmel and Akasha's general services and litigation. So they do have a little bit of crossover with LCW, but LCW has been representing us for negotiations and some other personnel matters. And as far as Rutan and Tucker, they're a litigation attorney or a law firm, and so they're representing the district for litigation. And then the credit cards, we are tailoring back, or shall I say, cutting back on what we're using the credit cards for, and we're getting up to speed on that. But I do apologize that we haven't been timely paying some of our vendors, and we are getting up to speed on that as well.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes,
And part
Director
of that,
Wharton.
speaking to Carmel and Natasha, does it appear that there is 2 retainers and we are getting caught up to speed for the September and then going forward into October? That's why there's 2 $11,000 charges?
Yes, we've adjusted our processes so that they receive their retainer by the first of the month, and then they hold the retainer until the end of the month, I believe, right? And then they charge whatever their services are against that and send us an invoice for the remainder, if there is a remainder, or credit us, depending on which it is.
Credit. Thank you.
Tina Dickinson.
Excuse me, if I could make a comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your light.
No, I just turned it on. It's no problem. Plus, my cup is in the way. I believe Mr. Howell queried how many hours these expenses represented, especially with...
I can barely hear you.
Well, thank you.
That's better.
Thanks very much. I believe Mr. Howell was asking how many hours the added expenses represent, especially with Carmel and Natasha. They don't necessarily have to answer, but that Ms. Madrid followed up, but she didn't, how could I say it, refer to that question regarding hours.
I can address that. If you want to divide that number by 185, that'll give you a rough estimate. Of course, there's costs built in there, so that's not an accurate number, but that would give you a general idea. There are a lot of hours because there's a lot of work involved.
So $185 an hour, essentially, plus costs that were, thank you. Thank you for waiting, Ms. Dickinson.
No problem. Tina Dickinson, I already had planned on speaking on many of the items that Mr. Howell brought up. Rattan and Tucker, $10,732. As we just begin litigation for CDM Smith, I am assuming that's where that money went. Liebert, Cassidy, and Whitmore, $11,745. Last month it was $43,000. The month before that it was $11,000. The month before that it was $9,000. All under admin. All under admin, closed session. I'm not sure if it's separating it out for any labor negotiations, but I've only seen it listed under admin, and it's incredibly, our money is about $100,000 right there for Liebert, Cassidy, Whitmore. First Bank card is troubling me again. Admin meeting, all issued on 9/10/2018 for food. 7206, 5990, $23, 7627, all for food for admin meetings. Come on, folks, bring your brown bag lunches. We cannot afford this. And I'm seeing also recently under First Bank card, admin fuel for district fuel, the district fuel vehicle, $44.95. There are more of those. Why is the district vehicle not being used for the purposes that it has been in the past? Who is using it? Why are we now seeing it coming under First Bank card for $45, $50 to fill up the hybrid vehicle? And under that, Melissa Bland also a mileage for reimbursement for retrofit inspection. That should be with the district's vehicle. We should not be paying extra. There are two expenses there. It's $13.75, $14.45 for a retrofit inspection. Water loss audit validation. I'm not getting that. And the other thing I really have trouble with is the $100 a month for cell phones, for admin, the fire department chief, and yet the folks in the plants are still getting $45. I don't understand why we can't get a better deal. For years it was $45. We should not be paying $100 for cell phone use for admin and other officials. It seems to me if we have an emergency, it's water and wastewater folks and fire that are needed, not admin. And I'm really troubled by that. So again, we need to, there's lots more, but we need to really look at this. Finance committee, please, I'm sure you're doing your good job, but you need to scrutinize this because we are wasting a lot of money unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I would take a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'd second it.
Moved by Director Pearson, seconded by Vice President Behringer. All in favor? Oh, do we do roll call? Roll call, or can we just do all in favor? Please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? 5-0. The motion passes on the consent agenda. All right, next item of business is regular business. Ms. Madrid.
I can just start. I'm going to be handling this one. This is a discussion and consideration of adoption of Resolution 30, 2018, amending the district salary schedule, including establishing a pay schedule for the position of acting general manager and approval of acting general manager employment agreement with Monique Madrid. So the district needs an acting general manager while it recruits for a new permanent general manager. And the board has requested that Monique Madrid, the administrative services director, district clerk, fill that position, and Ms. Madrid has agreed to do so. So you have an employment agreement in your packet with a base salary of $152,000. In January of this year, Government Code Section 20,480 became effective relating to appointments of out-of-class employees. And what that does is limit the amount of hours that an employee performing services in an out-of-class position can perform to 960 in any fiscal year. It also has extensive monitoring and reporting requirements. We've included all those provisions in the agreement itself. That Government Code Section 20,480 also requires that the salary of the employee filling that higher classified position be included either in a collective bargaining agreement or on a salary schedule that complies with California Code of Regulations Section 570.5. What that required us to do was put a resolution in the packet that revised the district salary schedule to include the acting general manager position and the salary of $152,000. There's also some cleanup in that resolution with respect to some changed job titles, and it includes a 5% salary increase to the administrative services director, district clerk, that was granted back in October of 2017. So it brings that salary schedule current, and it complies with California Code of Regulations Section 570.5. So with that, a little more about the contract. The contract, it will expire after 6 months, 960 hours. It can be terminated by the board at any time for any reason without notice. It can be terminated by Ms. Madrid on 10 days advance written notice. Upon termination of the agreement, Monique will return to her position as Administrative Services Director, District Clerk at the salary she had then and the benefits that were in place. So turn it back to you and be glad to answer any questions.
Are there questions from the board? I did have a question about the 5% increase. I realize we're doing a cleanup. I would have liked to have the prior salary schedule included, not just the current one, or at least a red line copy, so that I could see what differences there might exist. But the 5% on the 5% increase is on top of an increase that was already granted by the board, albeit a delayed increase. But I'm not sure how other board members feel about the 5% increase on that position being put in the salary schedule. Is there a, I thought that was an increase that was given by the general manager, and this is asking the board to approve that increase for that position. Is that right?
No, it's reporting the salary on the salary schedule, so it's accurate when it's posted for the state.
So there was a 5% increase given on top of the increase that the board, that all the managerial folks and the confidential employees got.
Yeah, I think this was when he did that reorganization in October, and you received a memo that detailed all of this. So yeah, it's as a result of increased services.
Okay, so this is the pay that's already been being paid. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
I can tell you what the monthly equivalent is if you'd like.
I'm less concerned about that than just the process that was followed, and I certainly don't want to be taking money away that's already been earned. That's not my point. It's that the process was not followed. I'm glad we're doing that here, and I look forward to further keeping an eye on these kinds of expenses. Vice President Berenger?
I don't have any questions. I would move that we approve. We adopt Resolution 30, 2018, amending the district salary schedule, including establishing a pay schedule for the position of acting general manager, and approve the acting general manager employment agreement with Monique Madrid.
I second.
It's moved by Vice President Berenger, seconded by Director Wharton. I just have one question. So when the budget was done, was it budgeted, the position Administrative Services Officer, District Clerk, was that budgeted at the 5% that's now in the salary schedule? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. There was a nodding going on over there, just so you know.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so moved by Vice President Berenger, seconded by Director Wharton. May I please have a roll call vote on this item?
Vice President Berenger?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6B. Ms. Madrid.
Thank you, Madam President. This item is regarding a letter of support for developing an alternative emergency access route for Cambria, and I do believe the chief is here, and he's more familiar with this item.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for giving one of my captains the opportunity to give me the report earlier. I was in training and was not able to be here on time. So what you have before you is a request from the landowner. I think it's self-explanatory, but I'd like to go into it just a little bit. There has been a number of issues raised in regards to the fire safety of the community, and really there's only two what we call protective actions in case of a large cataclysmic type event. It's either something called shelter in place or evacuation if it's something we're not going to be able to address locally. Obviously, shelter in place means you stay in your home, you hunker down, you stay there, you let the event pass, and then you come out and you should be all right. Evacuation, based on the size of a potential wildfire or something like that, we may need to get people out of town. We're very limited on that, obviously, because of the way it was developed. Lodge Hill specifically, we only have two access roads that are paved in all weather, all year, that are for people to use. We were able to put the emergency access across the ranch, and now we can, by order, open that up and allow people to exit and go across out Park Hill, so we have another way out. We've always wanted more, and there's definitely places in town that we've already identified in our local hazard mitigation plan and other documents that we would like to strengthen by adding these evacuation routes if possible. The owners of the old Air Force property, it's under a trust called BKS Cambria, approached us because of a project they're doing. Please understand, this is outside, well outside the services district. We have no say on what it is they're doing. We have no financial responsibility, legal ability, or any other kind of influence on what they're doing other than they've asked for some support. If you look at this project solely in, do you support the concept of additional egress routes from the community, I think we would unilaterally say yes. That has to be the opinion of everybody that has any kind of safety mentality. But there are a lot of moving parts to what they are proposing. And I had the opportunity of a number of weeks ago on meeting with the owner, walking the property, looking at what it was they were proposing. And then after that, I went and spoke with the county fire prevention personnel that are actually putting these type of requirements based on what it is. So if he wants to move forward, if they want to move forward, they have to provide some other form of emergency ingress and egress because of the location where they are. So this isn't whether you support the project or what they're doing. This is whether or not you want to support the concept of additional egress for the community. They've proposed one specific location. There's at least 2 other concepts they're looking at, and all of that is irrespective of whether or not they are able to get the agreements, the legal agreements, and all the other stuff that they would have to go along with the property owners that are obviously going to be impacted by this happening. And that's basically where we stand. So I could probably answer more specific questions about this. I don't have any other real input on other than what it is they're proposing. It's a limited tent camping facility. And I think what's happening is County Fire and County Building are looking at what they might be wanting to do much farther down the road, and they're trying to make this kind of stuff more available. Obviously, they would put conditions on whether or not it's a all-hazard, year-round type road that's maintained and all those kind of things. But really what's before you is, do you, the CCSD board, want to support this with a letter of support and recommendation for them to move forward?
Thank you for that report. I have one request to speak. Are there questions before we take that? All right. Don Canestro. Thank you, Chief. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing today? Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Don Canestro, and I've been I want to talk about the proposed road that would cross the Ken Norris Rancho Marina Reserve, where I've been the director since 2001. If the CCSD is seriously seeking an emergency evacuation route for residents of Cambria, then all possible options should be considered in terms of costs and benefits to ratepayers. It seems inappropriate that CCSD is considering supporting of a private landowner and enterprise outside the district boundaries. I would advise you to consult these landowners before writing a letter on this subject. It is not at all clear what objectives will be met by building a road between Pine Ridge and the Air Force Base property, given that Highway 1 is a long, steep, and potentially dangerous drive from the base. It seems what is being proposed has not been fully thought through, or as an attempt by a private landowner to meet county requirements to develop his property. Active cattle operations on all the parcels that are proposed active cattle operations on all the parcels on the proposed road must cross and make the construction, maintenance, and use of this proposed emergency road infeasible because of the likely serious disturbance to livestock operations and associated fences and at least 3 locked gates and 2 wire gates. An all-weather road across a relatively undisturbed habitat will require considerable environmental disruption and thus likely mitigation for destruction of habitats. For example, the federally threatened red-legged frog is known to inhabit ponds on both sides of the proposed road. Monterey pines grow on both sides of the proposed road, which would likely preclude regrowth of this species of special concern. Last but not least, it is hard to imagine that citizen drivers of unknown abilities in vehicles of unknown status will be able to safely navigate an unfamiliar road, which, with multiple gates, free-ranging livestock, uneven surfaces due to cattle use, and down steep and narrow ridges, hillsides, and canyons without endangering themselves and others. So in short, I think a letter of support for this road is not warranted and is ill-advised. So thank you very much, and I've got copies of the letters you guys can read.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Skip Moss.
Thank you for letting me speak on this. I live up at the end of Pine Ridge. I've been there since 1984. I know the property that we are covering here very well because I've had access through Mr. Canestro, and before they were involved, I spent some time out on that property. I also am a friend of Dave Fiscalini's, and there are quite a few neighbors up at the end of Pine Ridge that are very concerned about this. It's the first we've heard about this. My concerns stem from the reasoning behind a road that is, 3-4 miles, maybe?
I think it's 2.5.
Okay, 2.5 miles. I've been...
Wait, so that's to the base. If you wanted to get to Highway 1, it's going to about 4.
Okay, well, I've been in construction for years, and I've helped design, engineer, and build these roads. And we're looking at something that's probably around $1 to $1.5 million to build a road that far. And why somebody who wants to put in tent camping with fire rings, let me say, for fire, why they want to spend that kind of money. There's something else going on here. My mom used to say, if it looks like a fish and it smells like a fish, it's a fish. Be very careful what you sign up for on this. I do agree with Bill, Chief Hollingsworth. I just talked to him about this, that all of us are in support of having different egress routes out of town. I think that ridge is very inappropriate for this. And for the CCSD to take on the liability of supporting this and saying there's potential for citizens to drive across that road, which is very dangerous, I think you really should think twice. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you for your input. All right. I don't see anybody's lights on.
Just a quick comment. I see no liability from the district. We do not have land use authority in any way, and it's almost moot for us to do this. I think it is worthwhile for the county to know that it would be something that the county might want to consider, and I think in the chief's side, to echo the chief's issue, is that even though we don't have land use, there's a general idea that we would support additional exits from the community, and to telegraph the fact that we would cooperate, not financially, and not build anything, but if the county feels that it's something that they need to do, that we would not be an obstacle toward their effort. And with that, I would support the letter, but with the provision that we don't have land use authority and it's simply advisory.
I tend to agree with that position, and I would actually go a step further in saying that I don't picture this as being a road for regular use, but rather an emergency, in a case of an emergency type of road, like the one that goes across the ranch. That's not a fully all-weather road, correct? Am I correct in that, Chief? So the environmental impacts, cost doesn't matter, but I think supporting in concept having another egress for this town would be good. I would like to see us support it in a way that is the most environmentally intelligent way of doing it, and not having it be a regular use road as opposed to. Director Wharton.
Of course, I support some additional egresses out of town. I feel I would like to see a little bit more information regarding this entire project as it comes up, and just slowly walk into it instead of doing any letter of support with today. I'd like to find just a little bit more information regarding some of the points that Mr. Canestro, Mr. Moss did bring up. I do believe it's warranted to hear that side.
Director Farmer.
I would tend to agree with Director Wharton. There were far more questions and more negatives that were addressed with regard to this particular issue here than positives. And yes, the need for another emergency route is needed for the community, but this certainly doesn't sound like the one. And just in reading, just the fact that these folks that are applying, for us being involved here and writing a letter, and they're doing tent camping. It just seems like, as Mr. Moss said, if there's an odor there, that means something. So I would concur with Director Wharton and say that we shouldn't even be addressing this at this time until we find far more information. And I would certainly want to hear from David Fiscalini, who I believe is probably the main landowner in that area as well.
Director Pearson?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys and your reticence to move forward, but all of these issues that they brought up are good issues, and they do need to bring them up when the county considers whether they're going to allow this to happen. But it's totally out of our hands as to whether this development happens or doesn't happen. And all we're stating is that we would like another egress to get out of town. So if they're going to approve the project, then we support having an egress that we can use. Okay, I think that's all we're basically stating in the letter.
Right, and I tend to think if anybody has any problems about whether it's camping or it's all outside of our authority, it's outside of our community, and let's get to, if you have a real desire, go to the county, do whatever you want, and I would I would actually recommend that we withdraw this letter rather than send a signal that we're trying to get involved in things that we don't have any involvement in. There's no need for a letter, really.
I kind of appreciate the way that you had phrased it initially in your comments, that we will not be an obstacle in that sense. And I think that it might be helpful, because what we don't want to have happen is they end up getting the project through the county permitting process, and then we can't access that extra road they end up putting in there because they get the project. I think going forward, having a letter that says we want to be cooperative, we're not going to take on any of the responsibility, and we don't have the authority. There's no water involved. This is not just in concept, this is something that we support have happen. I think that you do bring up valid concerns, but those are all concerns that will be part of the process if they move forward with the project. Having a letter that essentially says, you're not going to find a big problem with us if you move forward on this. I think, of course, in more eloquent language, Chief Hollingsworth has written up some fairly eloquent language already on this issue. Director Wharton?
Is the letter necessary right now? Is this something that we can maybe push a month, or when we get a little bit more information from the county? And can we jump in with our support at any time? Do we know information like that?
If I may,
please, Chief Hollingsworth.
You'll understand. It's been brought up already, and you'll appreciate the fact that the staff report to you is 1 page long, and that's the totality of information we have. I would like to just clarify that the concerns that have been brought up by the two speakers are extremely valid. Every one of the questions they asked are questions that I asked the representative when I was up there, because I know these things are going to be big issues for the community here and you, the board. And that person didn't have answers at that time. So this is very much in the infancy. He was proposing this one location, which was identified in the staff report. There's at least 2 others that they're looking at, one which may involve that same similar route in a little bit of a different direction, another one that went a little bit south and would actually have no bearing or connection to the CCSD. They're very much in the planning stage of this. And so just to add some validity to their concerns, those are things that we would all be concerned about as community members here. And at this time, they don't have answers to that. So that's just where they are.
Okay, I have one more request to speak. Jerry McKinnon.
Thank you, Jerry McKinnon. Thank you for the coffee again. Excellent. 40 years ago, right after the Air Force sold the property to some ranchers from way over in the valley someplace, it was operated by a couple who lived here in town. I used to drive that road up to the Air Force base to go bowling, have chow in their mess hall, all kinds of fun. And I had to go down the hill, too, to get back to Highway 1. Of course, I was much younger then, but I think there were 5 gates we had to go through, different property owners to get up to it, but they didn't complain. And now I'm considering the people who live on the top of the world. If, in fact, we were to have a fire, how do they get out? Well, one of them would be to go up Richard to the back gate and go across the top of the hill to the Air Force Base and then down the hill to Highway 1. I mean, in a panic situation, I suppose you do panicky things, but at least it gives an option. I would like to have a real serious discussion as to an escape route for the people who live on the top of the world. Now, if you live over here on Happy Hill, you don't worry about them on the top of the world. They're all rich people anyway. So, well, maybe they're not. But at any rate, please, and I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing. I don't know what you were saying back and forth and all that kind of thing. But I hope you will investigate it for the sake of the people who might get trapped in a fire if they don't have an alternate route out. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is this on this? Hank? Come on up.
Being a member of the North Coast Advisory Council, the council reviews these county-wide issues, and emergency planning for San Simeon as well is important. But I would suggest, just as an idea, that the residents of the community, including the board members, could attend a North Coast Advisory Council meeting. These matters come up there. They're reviewed by the Land Use Committee, and Supervisor Gibson is there, so you really have some impact. So just a thought as an alternative approach to a letter that may be outside of the normal district responsibilities.
Thank you for your comments. I would, is there anybody like to, Director Pearson?
I would move that we table this and come back next month maybe with an actual letter of what it would say and what it wouldn't say after council has reviewed it, and then we can look at this again, I think.
I would agree with that statement. I think that moves us one step closer to a few more of the answers, what our response and support would look like.
So we would need to have somebody then draft a letter, do Vice President Behringer, and then Director Farmer.
Well, I agree to table, and maybe we don't do any letter next month. What we do is we wait until there's a concrete proposal, and that has passed through the NCAC, perhaps. And then if there's any involvement that the CCSD has, maybe we bring it up. But it's outside of our area. It's outside of our authority. And we really got to try and keep our nose to the grindstone and be worried about the things that really make a difference for us. So that's just my point. I say table it until we have something more, until the chief feels that there's something more specific that he can bring to the board.
Director Farmer.
I'm just looking here at paragraph 2 under discussion where it says, representatives from BKS Cambria approached the CCSD seeking a general letter of support. I'd just like to see a representative from BKS Cambria perhaps come to a board meeting and explain to us what the heck's going on. I mean, I don't want to use flowery language. I'd like to hear from them what this is all about.
Director Pearson?
Yeah, I'm good with tabling until we get a more substantial packet of information. I'm fine with that.
Is the board okay with me contacting BKS in order to get that accomplished, to get somebody to come and speak to us about what the project is? Is that consensus of the board that it would be okay for me to do that so that we can move forward as it's been described?
Seems very reasonable.
It seems like a two-way street to me.
Okay.
Then, we get a chance to question, they get a chance to answer.
Okay. Then I will do that for the next board meeting and get in touch with them and see where we are. All right. Next up is board member committee and liaison reports. I already made a report on speaking to Supervisor Gibson and Charlie Grace regarding the hearing that happened at the Coastal Commission, which was the main report that I had for you guys.
Finance Committee report basically is the minutes are in the packet. So if you want to know what the Finance Committee is up to, please read the packet. Basically, we've been looking at policies, and our next meeting, which is November 1st, at 10 o'clock here in the dining hall. We will be considering more policies and moving forward on those. That's basically the finance. I have been attending joint CCSD, CHD ad hoc meetings, and one of the things that has been discussed at those is VOAD, which is Volunteers for Action After a Disaster, okay, which the county has a VOAD organization, and Cambria, the Fire Safe Focus group, which I also attend, and this joint ad hoc committee have been discussing whether we should have a COAD, which is the Community for Action After a Disaster. And I attended a VOAD meeting, which happens once every 6 months, and it doesn't look like they have any specific protocol. So I think we're just going to try to move forward with that, and I'll keep you up to date as to how that's going. That's basically my reports.
On the finance report, one, I would like to say thank you very much for including the minutes in the board packet. That is very helpful. The second thing, and I think these are minutes that were approved by the committees. Yes, these are from the September. They haven't been approved yet. Yeah. These are okay. So there's a little bit of a. On page 43, it says that I was not in attendance on the September 13th meeting, which is true. And then the next page, it says the motion was approved 5-0, which seems like the math doesn't work. That's on page 44 on the consent agenda approval. So I just wanted to not point out the mistake, but try and make sure the records are correct. That's all.
I seem to recall, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Director Farmer,
okay.
And then Vice President
Thank
Berenger.
you for recognizing me. I seem to recall, not that this even matters, but there was a meeting where you showed up a little after the meeting began.
That was
Right,
the
so maybe
October
that's
meeting. That was the October meeting, yeah. Vice President Berenger.
Yeah, I do think that these minutes really haven't been approved by our infrastructure committee. It's in this packet, informational only. Is that correct? And tomorrow we're going to approve it, or Tuesday?
These have been approved.
These by us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and then we're going to approve the next minutes, which we haven't seen yet?
Correct.
Okay.
They're in the
All right.
packet.
Well, nonetheless,
today.
we're going to be meeting on the 31st, Tuesday, and just prior to the Finance Committee. So the Infrastructure Committee minutes are pretty complete, and trying to focus on future things. Director Farmer may be able to add to it. A couple of things that the Finance Committee has asked offline is, to take a look at the CIP list and what is going to be important, and we're going to be addressing that on Tuesday. One thing that's pretty clear is that John Elshin has been looking for this Vector truck for a long time. I know it's an expensive piece of equipment, and we really need to I'm pretty sure that's going to show up as one of the top items, and we'll probably throw that over to the Finance Committee and how we finance that. It looks like we might be able to do that in the budget now that the rates have been approved, and there's tons of things that we can do. Mr. Buell said that he does have good track on where he's fixed leaks for the past 5 years and so on and so forth, and he really wants to do fiscal stuff instead of too much, spending so much time getting into the new system and everything else, and I kind of endorse that too. There's 100 things that you could do, but we need to get the work done, and one of the things getting the work done is the Vector truck. And another thing about getting a pretty high priority, I know the previous general manager has been pushing for many years, trying to get our water meters, the meters that are at the house, to get those updated. We'll be able to charge more. Hopefully, they have been underreporting so that we can get more revenue if we in fact
can gauge more. We might do that in a phase project, but that's not up to us. The infrastructure committee will make a recommendation that might be a high priority. Other than that, maybe Director Farmer has additional information.
No, not necessarily, although I seem to recall one of the items that Engineer Greshams has brought up, that in 2013, the Water Department was hoping to initiate a 5-year program where at 20% a year, we would be investigating the water pipes that deliver water with regard to rust and other problems that might exist. And that only took place for 1 year, and nothing has happened since then. So we still have 80% of those water pipes that need to be investigated and upgraded if necessary, which is probably necessary. So that'd probably be another very important issue as well.
Right. I think that was the sewer pipes that are being looked at, not the water delivery pipes are plastic.
They might want to video those ones too.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to step back on my comment, but I'll check with Mr. Alchin and Mr. Buell.
Okay.
It's part of our sanitary sewer management plan to do that videoing, and we need to get back on schedule on that for sure. I think it's important to do both because we do have issues with the water quality, which is high quality, but it also tends to cause corrosion because that's what water does to metal. So I think it's important that we keep an eye on both of those things. Did you have anything else, Vice President Behringer? Okay. Director Farmer?
I know that Vice Chair Karen Dean is in the audience. I wonder if she would wish to add anything.
Okay, liaison reports.
I have a couple if nobody else does.
Yep, it's all you.
I'm a little spaced out today, apparently. First time, correct. Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Behringer. Thank you, buddy. No problem.
It's a good thing. It's a good meeting today.
I happened to attend the NCAC meeting a week ago yesterday, so I can report on that. A few items. First off, Iggy Fedorov announced that Tenet Healthcare is going to be opening their office at the medical building right there on Main Street by the Chevron station. They're going to be having a licensed physician and staff on hand. And he mentioned the date December 1st. So I checked the calendar this morning just to see, and that's a Saturday. I believe I got the date right that he mentioned, but if I have the date right or wrong, Tenet Healthcare is going to be in town in December. Supervisor Gibson provided an update on the Coastal Committee meeting in San Diego regarding the San Simeon CSD withdrawing their permit application. We've already heard something on that, so I'm not going to allude to that further. Also, Supervisor Gibson mentioned that in the Cayucos CSD had two requests for vacation rentals, and both of those were denied. Arlen Singerwald from County Planning, he discussed the tiny home ordinance in the city of San Luis, which may not seem to apply to us, but tiny houses are a happening thing right now all over the country. So he said that what's going to happen is that there's a need to update zoning and health and safety codes, that tiny houses have to fit into the overall ambiance of the neighborhood, and they're going to have a workshop on tiny houses in about 4 to 6 weeks. He also spoke about the Rod and Reel Mobile Home Park here in Cambria on Main Street, and he said this is a state and not a local or county issue, which was kind of a surprise, but that's what that is. The NCAC Land Use Committee approved 2 minor use permits, but they denied one for a single-family residence on Ellis being used as a vacation rental because it didn't meet the Cambria ordinance distance requirement, which is to be within 90 feet of another vacation rental. There was also a discussion on the possibility of bike racks being placed here in Cambria, and if you'd like me to elaborate on that, I can, including the color that was chosen. And then Aaron Lynn, who's the business representative, he reported that even though business is up since Highway 1 has reopened. Many businesses are still recovering from the lack of revenue during the Highway 1 closure. He also mentioned the shrinking labor pool here in our community, the need to address the issues of affordable housing, and that employees continue to move out of the area because they can't afford rents or they can't find rents. And then finally, Dixie Walker reported that there was going to be a meeting on vacation rentals. It was supposed to be, it was originally scheduled for, last month, for this month. It was postponed till next month. It has been again canceled and will likely be rescheduled for sometime in January of 2019. I also attended the Friends of the Fiscalini Ranch meeting. Erosion control projects that began on September 4th have been successfully completed at a cost of just under $30,000. I have these numbers. Okay, here we go. 4 significant ranch projects, boardwalks, and bridges have been discussed with County Department of Planning and Building, and they're checking into the permitting that would be required. Discussions regarding determining what shovel-ready projects on the ranch should be pursued, and Friends of the FFRP are going to be investigating grant funding for these projects. There's also, let me pass on that one. There's a possibility of one more bench on Marine Terrace, part of the Bluff Trail. $4,000 was approved for that project. The boundary survey has been completed. They had discussed that before, just following up on that and dealing with the encroachments issues. There's leftover funds left from the August event where Spanish-speaking members of the community met at Chamel Park and then went out on the ranch. So there's leftover funds, so they're going to be doing more Spanish language material outreach to promote the ranch among the Spanish-speaking community. And then finally, there was a discussion of the Eroica bicycle event that is being promoted by Aaron Lynn that may take place next April in our community. And basically what this is, it's a celebration of the history of bicycling. It's not a race, and it's been done in the past in Paso Robles. In fact, it's been done for decades in dozens of foreign countries. So this time it's being promoted to happen here in Cambria. It involves about 1,200 riders. It could be that up to 2,000 people would be coming to Cambria, and the East Ranch Park area would be involved. So there was concern about traffic and parking and other safety concerns were brought up, and it was determined that more information would be needed before approving or denying this particular event being involved at the Fiscalini Ranch. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your reports. Ms. Madrid? Yes, I think it's a good time for a break. How long? 10 minutes? All right. Then let's come back at about 3. I'd like to call the meeting back to order, and we are on the number 8, which is the the manager's report.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to thank the board and the community for giving me the opportunity to serve as acting general manager. It's an honor. And so with that, I have some updates from what I've been doing the last couple of weeks. And I can say as long as I've worked here and as much as I know about the district, I've learned a lot in 2 weeks. It's been amazing. So I have started out by having a manager's meeting and followed it up with meeting with all the departments and the supervisors and managers in each department. And the desire was to meet with them, find out what their current projects are and what their concerns are for their departments, and find out what their solutions or suggested solutions are. So that's been really productive. I asked them to provide me with a list of their equipment, looked at their vehicles. We're going to develop a policy and a process for them to put more clear and uniform labels on their trucks. Some of them say the CCSD website, some don't. Some have a logo, some don't. Some have the same equipment, some don't. So we'll get a uniform list, and in the future it'll all be equipped similarly according to what type of vehicle it is. We will also institute a fuel and vehicle, mileage log, and then managers will be able to create the spreadsheets and collect that information and be able to answer the questions that some people have asked for us. But also it'll help us keep track of our vehicles better. So let's see. Where am I here? Okay, so I did also ask the managers who are involved in utilities to talk about and give consideration to an alternative piece of equipment to the dump truck. And after 2 weeks of various conversations and discussions, they did finally convince me that a dump truck is the right way to go. And they gave me lots of reasons why, which mostly pertain to all of the departments being able to use the dump truck for various CCSD projects or needs. And so there is a willingness from all of the department supervisors and managers to start looking at things a little bit differently and what kind of equipment they can use collectively and whether or not they need that equipment. So I was pleased to have that start happening. I also talked with the SWF CPO and Bob Gressens, and they did walk the property with John Rocky the other day, and when they walked with him, he did have a conversation with them about permits, and we are proceeding with the closure plan, and the CPO is preparing, or Jim, you met Jim Green today, he's preparing to run the plant in the recirculation process, which was really interesting. When I was out there, they were showing me the different improvements that they've made, the tubing that they've replaced, and some other things that were interesting. I did take some of our staff, and more of our staff, our new staff, will be going out and getting tours of everything so they can answer the questions of the public better. So we also talked about, or we met with the county yesterday, and we talked about the regular coastal development permit. We did make some progress on that. Our biologist was with us, and one of the things that also came up on that, I think it was after Tim got off the phone.
Could we please have quiet so we can hear the acting general manager's report? Thank you. Go ahead.
So when we got off the phone, Erlen did explain to us about ADUs versus guest houses or mother-in-law quarters, whatever you want to call them. And I haven't had a chance to run this by council, so I can't swear that this is absolutely correct. But my understanding of what I took away was an ADU is the accessory dwelling unit, and that you can separately meter, because for CSDs there's an exception based on your resources. And guest houses, that's not the case. But an ADU is a secondary dwelling unit, not a guest house. So I know there's been some discussion and some questions about how does that relate to us. But that's what I took away. But I do have to check with Tim to figure out what the code actually says. So then the OMMP, we are working on updating that. And the final review is in progress. So that was good news also. I already talked about the vehicle mileage log. We are going to be bringing back to the board next month a resolution. Hopefully it'll be for a debt management policy, which will go to the Finance Committee on November 1st. And we also will be bringing back a resolution for a loan for the dump truck and for the truck for the wastewater treatment plant with the crane on it. We did have a utilities, finance, CIP rate meeting, and we worked with the finance manager, Pam Duffield, and we worked with Bob and the department managers and supervisors, and they did prepare an updated CIP list for the infrastructure committee, which was posted this morning, I believe, right? And let's see, so that will also go to the finance committee, so we kind of killed two birds with one stone on that one, and we'll obviously have to update the finance committee based on what the infrastructure committee proposes orally at the meeting, and then it'll come back to the main board. Let's see if I have anything else. Water department is doing their normal operations. There's nothing outstanding in water that I'm aware of. And wastewater is still working on their influence screen, which is in process with the contractor. He's working on the details, and we hope to have him on site soon installing the influence screen. Now, I think that's all that I have as far as my updates. So if you have any questions.
Director Wharton.
Yeah, looking under administrative, last month we had a permit violation due to our pH meter failing. Have we corrected that? Was there any corrective action taken? Was there any punitive action against the district for that?
Is that under Bob's?
Is that under Bob's? I just had it highlighted. Wastewater?
I'm sorry, what was it under? Wastewater? I think that was due to a missing lab report that we actually did have. Bob's here, yay!
He snuck in.
I'm not sure I heard the question, so sorry.
I was just looking at the permit violation due to the pH meter failing. Operator Tony Artho shipped the old pH probe back to HJ's Hatch for repair. So did we receive any punitive damage, or is it just
I apologize. I just can't hear what you're saying. Is your mic on, or is it just me?
Thank you, Haley.
Okay, you're talking about the wastewater treatment plant pH meter.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Right. Page. And the question is whether we had
Was there any punitive action taken against us, or is it just more?
I don't think there will be.
Okay.
And I'm not aware of one. So
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you earlier.
I'll try to slow down in the future.
Did you have any further questions? Director Farmer.
Thank you. On page 56, under miscellaneous, down near the end, it mentions that on September 19th, staff attended a third quarter local government agency meeting sponsored by SLO County Energy Watch. The meeting included discussions on various funding programs associated with energy conservation. You people having difficulty hearing me? Is that what you're saying? So I'm sorry about that. Okay. I'll just speak closer to the microphone. Should I repeat what I just said, or is everyone okay with that? My apologies. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up, and then there was a webinar sponsored by the Alliance for Water Efficiency and California Water Efficiency Partnership, also on that same date. And, personally, being involved with infrastructure issues, being involved with water and wastewater, and someone on this board, and I don't think I'm the only one, who's, certainly been speaking up and concerned about water efficiency and water usage in the present and in the future. It would be cool if maybe at least board members could become aware of these events that are taking place, and perhaps either we could attend or watch or something like that, if that's possible.
Absolutely, we'll get that info to you, sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I do have a request to speak on the general manager's report. Don Howe. Oh, it looks like on the finance manager's report. Do we have a separate report from the finance manager? Okay, so we'll wait for the.
Yes.
Unless you had one on the, okay. Thank you. Vice President Berenger.
Okay, I just wanted to, I noticed in the general manager's report on page 74 and 75 and 76, we have production reports, and I just did some quick math. Over the last 4 years, we've averaged 500 acre feet a year of production. And for the previous 7 years, we averaged 709 acre feet a year. And if you go back farther and farther, it's always about 700 acre feet. So we're utilizing only 70% of the water that's available to us at the moment. And I also looked on to page 77. I always look at the WBE well level is at almost 3.5 feet, and the gradient between 9P2 and SS4 is a positive 1.85. So at this point, part of the year after August, hopefully we're going to get some rains. It looks like we're in above average position as far as well levels, and we're very efficient as far as use of the water that we have available to us. And I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anything further before we go on to the finance manager's report? All right, let's move on.
I just wanted to mention that, I'll be closer. I just wanted to mention in the back pages, I think it starts on page 88, you have the quarterly budget report. The prior meeting, we also had a budget report that was through the month of August. So I just wanted to clarify if you were expecting this report on a quarterly basis from here forward, or if you do want to continue the budget updates on a monthly basis.
Director Pearson.
Personally, I would like to see it every 2 months when we can reconcile the revenues and the expenditures a little bit easier. Quarterly, it sometimes doesn't balance out because we haven't gotten the revenues from water and wastewater and do the report.
Okay.
But if we do it every 2 months,
okay,
then you can kind of see that we're on schedule for this one and not on that one or whatever. So
okay,
that would be helpful to me.
So we would have the next update in the December meeting, which would carry expenditures through November. Revenue and expenses through November, correct?
Would it be wiser to make it January, because then you're going to have November, December billing. You're probably going to get the revenue in January. So the more accurate, I would think, the more accurate time frame to look at it would be January.
So you have to remember we're a month in the rears. So if we're in the January meeting, you're only going to have details through December 31st.
Mm-hmm. That sounds.
We have revenue predictions for through December 31st also, though?
No, because we won't be getting, bills will be due. We're going to be billing November 10th, so bills will be due sometime around that in December. So we just might not, correct? It's a December. So we just might not see all of them through. I mean, we can do it and see how it goes.
I think if it's offset the month so that it's the month where it makes the most sense. So if the bills are due, say January 10th is the due date, then we should have the 2-month report should be the month following that,
Yeah,
right?
You know what, I mean, you know what your January and February, or your November and December billing is, so you know what your anticipated net revenue is, whether they pay it or not. I mean, whether they pay or not is probably a small percentage difference.
Right.
So.
I like the 2-month idea. I think it works.
Yeah, I think January, and we're going to need one in January anyway because it's midway, and that's probably when you're going to be.
That would be quarterly anyways.
You're going to showing us the next budget, right? Your revised budget will probably be
either January or February, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the next
so are you clear
update
on
would actually be quarterly. It would be a 3-month update, not a 2-month. It would go through December 31st.
Sure.
Okay, so quarterly.
Sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Every 2 months, I think. But January would start, and then we would have another one in March, and then another one in May. Okay, thank you.
You can still change your mind. I just want to be prepared.
No, it's good to get these things worked
Yeah,
out.
just so that we know, because I'm new at this, so I just want to make sure I'm meeting the expectations.
Yep, no problem.
So the next month's meeting is going to happen very early. So I just want to make you aware that we will not have the expenditure report available for posting. So you won't see the October expenditures until you also see November expenditures, and that will happen in the month of December. Just because of our meeting schedule deadlines because of the holidays next month. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay.
Maybe the new software, we will be able to turn it around more easily.
Maybe. We'll see. So, and then if there's any other comments or questions, I'm available.
Director Pearson.
Yeah, two things.
Sure.
One, when you do the budget on the every 2 months, can we get a balance sheet at that time also, kind of showing us where our cash positions are and all that kind of thing?
Okay.
Second, I saw in here that our next bill from Tyler is due in December 1st, but since they haven't done that much, do we really expect a bill in December? Can we tell them, since you haven't done much, wait till later, or where are we at with that?
So we were previously billed by them, I believe it was in the month of August. And because the finance manager was not on board at that point, they agreed to postpone their first installment of the contract until December. So we will have to pay them on December. They won't continue based on the contract to prolong that.
Vice President Berenger?
Could we negotiate that? And let me explain. I know that, they want to get going and we aren't getting going. It's our fault. And they should understand that. But when we come into annual renewals and, deadlines for them implementing it, and they're saying they're going to only use so many hours until the end, I'm pretty familiar with those kind of contracts. Could we reach out to them and make sure and see if they could start a new license renewal date, for instance? If we signed a contract, we owe them for a year, but if we haven't really done anything, can we get them to push that out too, so that when it comes to a renewal, if you could take a closer look at that, I think we could save ourselves some money next year sometime, once we're fully implemented. That's just a thought.
Okay, I'll reach out to the contact that's contacted me this week, and we'll find out if that's negotiated, or if we can negotiate that or not.
I just have one comment, and I'm pretty sure it's not something that can be addressed in the short term, but I do think that it's something we need to be taking a look at as a board. If you look I'm looking at page 86 in the first little section on the expenditure report for the month of September. On the third line down, it says, because the great majority of payroll costs are coded to liability clearing accounts, a summary of payroll costs is not useful. I would argue that for the board, a summary of payroll costs is actually kind of critical for us to know how we're doing, especially when it comes to managing the district as a whole regarding overtime and out-of-class pay and those kinds of things. I think to say that a summary of any kind of cost is not useful to the board is pretty much the opposite of my understanding of our fiduciary responsibility to the district. And I don't need them broken out by per employee, but it would be nice to know that we're on track with what we're expecting budget-wise, because our personnel costs are significant every month, and that's how it is in every district. But I think to say it's not useful to have that information I'm uncomfortable with that particular position. Maybe it's just me, but I would find it kind of useful. I don't need it broken out per employee, but a summary would, I think, be useful.
If what you're just asking for is percentage-wise where we are every month, we can provide that pretty easily, I would think. Can't we?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can clarify what you meant by that sentence.
So Alan wrote this, so I will clarify with him, because I think this is historically how his report was always written. And if you look back to the budget pages that start 2 pages over, you do not see the line by line of payroll. So I will clarify with him the history there, and we'll get that fixed.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Are there any further questions for the finance manager? Then I think we are moving, unless there's anything else you want to address. Okay, then we are on future agenda items. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Thank you, Director Wharton. Don Howell. We're all a little ditzy today, I guess.
Oh, that's all right. This meeting's actually been pretty calm compared to some, so. Again, mostly some questions, things that perhaps I didn't understand or that weren't clear regarding the budget report. There is one thing that sort of a matter of concern, and that's on page 99 regarding for administration professional services. There's about several lines on account number 6080. Showing 50%. See, this is we're only 1 quarter through the year, and I'm seeing 50% of the budget already spent, 70% of the budget already spent, 128% of the budget already spent, and 124% already spent. That's just a little concerning. Do you see where I am on that? Okay, I think. Ms. Duffield, can you find the spot? Page 99 of the packet.
It's the accounts that are 6080, the professional services.
Yeah, 6080 AFKLM&T. It's just showing a huge amount of money that we're basically almost exhausted the budget on those items, and I just was a little concerned about that, kind of wondering about it. That's all. Maybe not for you to answer, but that was a matter of concern. But to go on, the other things are more maybe just problems with the spreadsheet itself. If you'll notice on page 91 of the packet, there's a line on account number 6180N as 128,000 spent and the budget of 128,000, but it shows that the percent of budget used is only 25%. So I presume that is an error. It makes no sense to me. That's why I brought it up. Similarly, let me see, on page 94, the capital outlay for the water fund, account number 6170. Again, I'm not seeing, there's an issue about it again shows 0% of the budget for the vacuum extractor and air compression, and yet what I see here was more than $60,000 was spent. So I'm just a little puzzled. I suspect maybe there's an error in the spreadsheet. Continuing on, just one last one. Again, on page 91, debt service, the amount of principal paid, $128,000, budget amount, $128,000, shows 89% of the budget spent. So again, I suspect there's an Excel error there. Anyway, it just didn't make sense.
We'll take a look at those. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's what it looks like to me too. There's probably just a calculation problem there. But thank you for pointing those out. All right, future agenda items. Director Farmer.
Yes, following up on the fact that we now have the rate increase has been approved, I feel that perhaps the district could make an effort to inform the ratepayers that are on fixed incomes, low incomes, that they may be qualified for reduced sewer rates. And also wondering if there's any way that the board or the district might consider lowering water and EWF/SWF rates as well for folks that are income challenged. I'm just thinking that might be a considerate thing to do for the ratepayers of the community who are, like I said, economically in difficult times.
So you want to review the policy regarding rates for low income? Is that what you're asking?
Well, that's part of it, but also just making the members of the community, well, all members of the community, more aware that there is an opportunity to have their rates lowered. And of course, right now it's, well, if you're having another utility bill, let's say your gas bill or electricity bill, and you're already having that lowered because you've had that agreement with those agencies or companies, that you can come to us. There could be members of the community that don't know that, and I think we should make them more aware of it. And I realize, well, that's going to affect our bottom line, but I'm more concerned about the ratepayers of the community. Our bottom line will work itself out.
Vice President Barringer?
I would support that, and there's also apparently what we do is, if your electric bill is discounted, you can approach the district on the sewer side. But I think we should also look to see if we can apply that on the water side.
That's what I just said.
And that's an actual decision that would need to be made. And I think that should be, if it's an agenda item, it should be broad enough so that we can make a decision on that, or at least direction on that. So I would support it.
And there's some legal difficulties too, that you can't do a certain amount of, you can't require the non-low income folks to subsidize the low income folks, except at a certain, so we would need to look into the details of it, because it's something that did come up during the rate study this time and the last time. We looked at how do we make sure that we're accommodating that concern. So I will put that as something that we will come back with as expeditiously as we can, given our constraints right now.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
In the meantime, we can certainly look at our packet that we give to new customers and make sure that there's something in there about that if there isn't, and we can put something on our website as well.
Thank you, General Manager Madrid.
Director Pearson.
I actually have two things. One, going a little bit forward, or maybe I'm going too fast on this one, but Hank made a very good point of needing some speed on San Simeon's part to move forward on the discussions, at least, as to what we can do. I'd like to see something on the agenda next time about the regional wastewater treatment plant. Maybe we can get Supervisor Gibson to come and give us his ideas and stuff, that our community would be more informed as to what we're moving forward on and that kind of thing. One.
Just on that point before you go on, when I spoke to Charlie Grace, who's the general manager for San Simeon, we were in flux with our acting GM, but I did say that we need to have our staff contact the regional board and find out if that's something. So I think that we're in motion on that so that we can know whether it's something the board needs to consider. Because if we can't get it permitted through the regional board even, that seems like a good first step.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would support that, other than it actually being an agenda item for next month. And I think that, some things need to gel a little bit earlier, so.
But the communities need to be involved in that discussion, so having, even a town hall or something.
Okay, so a report and discussion on that next. Okay.
Okay, and then you had another one. Go ahead.
Yeah, the other one is based upon some action by one of the members of the community looking at part of our code. It's 8.04.100, paragraph B.1.A, and it talks about how wide of a lot you have to have in order to transfer credits and all that kind of stuff, and looking at making that 50 feet of contiguous instead of just 50 feet. I think just adding the word contiguous would allow us to make sure that there's enough room for the fire personnel to get between the buildings to put out a fire if there was one. So I'd like consideration of amending our code to make that happen.
Vice President Barron?
I don't know what the urgency is for that, but it could be. We have been approached by someone that wants to be getting the low-income meters that we've already put out, and there's a difference between our code and the county's code on what low-income housing really is. And that project is something that we should look at the code, I think. As I have always said many, many times, is that we're not in the land use business, but when our code is different than the county's code, it becomes problematic. So I would like to be able to bring that code that allows for low-income housing to be reviewed. It might take a little time for district council to get things together, but I want to. The objective is to make sure that our code is not more restrictive than the county's, because in doing so, we actually become in the land use business and we shouldn't be. So that code, I don't know what the section is, but I think there was some correspondence about that. In fact, I sent something to district council about that. It looks like we can just remove 2 paragraphs and we'd be in compliance with the county. So I move really that we have that item on the agenda for next month.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So the paragraphs on affordable housing you want to review and just delete 2 paragraphs, or you want to review it overall and then?
It's up to general district council, but the agenda item should be broad enough so that if we do want to make some modifications,
so we can make it a modification,
so that we're in sync with the county, because they're really the people that determine what low-income housing is, and maybe the district council can comment.
So we're talking about a code amendment, which is an ordinance, takes 2 readings. I think it would be helpful to have the discussion first before actually bringing forth an ordinance. It's pretty complicated stuff. And we have a provision in there that requires the county to certify a housing program as affordable if it's going to meet our criteria already in that section. So that's something we can discuss. But I think it's important we have the discussion before we bring forward any.
So we'll have a discussion on policies regarding affordable housing.
The program itself, we'll bring that forward.
Is that acceptable?
If it's a discussion and it's going to be on the agenda, I don't think we have to have a vote on it. Yeah. So we can direct staff to just put it on the agenda for the discussion for next month.
Okay. Is there any objection to that? Okay.
And
Mr. Carmel, did you have something else?
No, it's just that technically we should be voting on each of these to put them on the agenda.
Okay. I move that we have a discussion item on next month's agenda, substantial discussion item on next month's agenda that that discusses the ability for our code to be in sync with the county's code, with the objective of putting it on as a ordinance change. That's my motion.
Second.
Seconded by Director Pearson. Okay, let's have a roll call. Is everybody clear on the motion?
Yep.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Vice President Berenger?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Rice?
No. That passes 4-1. Thank you. We do have a couple of other, do you want to make the motions
Yeah,
on those?
I'd make a motion to discuss and possibly review that section of the code.
8.04.
100B1A for revision.
I second that. Okay, is there any questions? Okay, then let's have a roll call vote, please.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Berenger?
No.
The motion passes 4-1. And Director Farmer, I want to ensure that you feel that direction to staff meets the needs, or do you want to make a motion regarding low-income rates for water and sewer?
Well, General Manager Madrid did say that there would be a statement included in the bill. So, income-challenged ratepayers would be aware of the fact that they could get their bill lowered, but we might put on the agenda, as Vice President Beringer also mentioned, as well as myself, to perhaps lowering water and EWF/SWF rates, as well as just the wastewater rates, which is what it is right now. So
you want to have a discussion on doing that?
yeah, I think that would be a wise move.
I would second that.
Okay, so to have a discussion item regarding water rate reduction for income challenged.
Right, as well as wastewater, yes, thank you.
As well as wastewater. All right. Does everyone understand the motion? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Real quick, will we have parameters put forth with income parameters that meet this? That will be in the discussion as well then?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need to, is this something that's time sensitive, or do we need to do this next month, or can we do it after that?
Well, the rate increase has just gone in. Well, will be going in November, right? I feel like we should act on this, if not in November or December, certainly by January.
Is that doable, staff?
I think so.
Okay, so we have had a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call, please.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Berenger?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
Director Wharton?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Okay, apparently it's time to go.
What's the emergency?
Okay. I'm looking for the fire chief's answer to, do we need to evacuate?
I would like to propose another agenda item for November, and if we're looking at the well levels and while it's raining, or hopefully it'll be raining by that time, and the amount of water that we're using. I do want to comment that I did, in fact, send to Daniel Robinson, as directed by, or as authorized by the board last month, to explain to him where we stand as far as the what a stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 is, etc. And now that that's been published, I'm pretty sure that I tried to give an idea what the direction of the discussion was last month. And I haven't received any response from him yet, but I expect to get that by next month. But what I was hoping to do is have an agenda item that says what stage are we really in at the moment. In other words, what level are we in? And I think it'd be constructive to say by the old standard, in other words, if we were to take the Southern Oscillation Index.
By what's in the ordinance.
What stage are we in compared to that? And how we're going to move forward on setting stage 1, 2, and 3. So I think that could be a substantive discussion. I think it's a perfect time to do it because it's in November when the election's over and we can really carry on a good discussion, and it might take a couple of times for us to do the good work. But I definitely would like to say, have a discussion on what level are we in and how do we proceed on providing additional guidance. So.
So let me see if I understand. So you want the board to be able to have a discussion regarding how we define level 1, 2, and 3, or stage
That's
1, 2, and
secondary.
3?
That's secondary, but I think because of Daniel's email to us was, take a look at that empirical evidence. Where were you in stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, and don't go changing
Right.
things. And we do want to change things because we wanted to make it feet on the ground.
Yeah.
So it's more than a discussion. It's a determination of what stage are we in using the old method, and additional discussion on how to begin changing that definition in the future.
I think opening the discussion and starting to have that discussion, I think is good. If we can get it done in November, I'm all for it.
Staff?
Well, we only have 2 weeks to prepare because the
'cause it's
November
in
meeting is
early.
early. So
Right.
some of these things may have to be pushed to December. So
Okay.
I guess we can look at what.
So we've got the motion to put it on the agenda, and if we can't stick it to the November agenda, then we'll have to push.
Okay.
So that's a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Director Pearson. Let's have a roll call vote before my brain goes
We have this thing
fried.
going.
Vice President Berenger.
Aye.
Director Pearson.
Aye.
Director Wharton.
Aye.
Director Farmer.
Aye.
President Rice.
Aye. I think unless there's further, we are going to go to, I don't have any comment slips for closed session. We are going to adjourn to closed session for the day. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Oh, thank goodness. I don't know if the TV audience could hear that alarm, but